She said it while refilling her wine glass, like it wasn't loaded with venom, like it wasn't going to detonate the quiet little illusion we'd been feeding for months. She didn't even look at me when she said it, just stared across the table at my sister, with that smug half-smile she saves for when she wants to wound without taking credit for the blood. I don't think Curtis is man enough to leave even if I cheated. That was it. That was the line. There was no yelling, no dramatic pause, no spilled drink or gasp from the relatives. Just a long, awkward silence. Then a few coughs. A clink of silverware. My cousin tried to change the subject by asking how my job was going, but I didn't answer. I was too busy gripping my chair, so hard my knuckles turned white. I didn't yell. I didn't ask questions. I didn't cry, though my throat tightened like it wanted to. I just stood up, slowly, carefully, and I walked out. Out of my mother's house. Out of the family dinner we'd hosted together. Out of the nightmare I hadn't realized I'd been living in until she cracked it open in front of everyone. I didn't slam the door. I didn't take my coat. I didn't even grab the stupid banana pudding I'd made from scratch. I got in my car and drove until I didn't recognize the names on the street signs. Then I pulled over into a gas station parking lot, turned off the engine, and just sat there, watching the orange glow of the convenience store lights flicker on and off like a dying pulse. She hasn't called. Not once. But I know that line wasn't a joke. And now that I've started digging, what I'm finding, she really meant it. It took me 2 full days before I could breathe without it catching in my chest. 2 days holed up in a crummy roadside motel with walls so thin I could hear the guy next door arguing with his dog. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I didn't even open her last message. I kept replaying the dinner scene like a slow-motion car crash, trying to convince myself that maybe I misheard her. Maybe she was drunk. Maybe it was just a dark joke, the kind she sometimes made when she wanted to seem edgy in front of people. But the longer I sat in that motel room, surrounded by faded carpet, buzzing lights, and my own pathetic silence, the more I realized something I didn't want to admit. She said it because she meant it. Not out of shock value. Not to get a reaction. She said it because deep down, she believed it. I wasn't man enough to leave. And maybe, for a long time, I wasn't. But this time I had. Still, my heart wouldn't let me rest. My brain, traitorous as always, kept whispering possibilities. Maybe there's more. Maybe it wasn't random. Maybe she's already done it. And that was the thought that finally made me drive back, not home, but to my office. See, here's the thing. Lacey isn't tech-savvy. She once asked me if uploading to Google Drive would mail the file to someone. And our home computer? I built it. I maintain it. I'm the only one who runs backups, updates, virus scans. She barely touches it, unless she needs to check emails or plan a party. But when I went back late that night, snuck into the house while she was out, her car was gone. Lights off. She didn't even change the locks, like she thought I was bluffing. I booted up the desktop and went looking. Not because I expected anything. Honestly, I thought I'd leave again 5 minutes later, embarrassed that I was spiraling this far. Then I found it. A folder buried deep in the documents directory. Hidden inside layers of generic folder names like taxes_2018 and work_stuff. The final folder? It was called April. That was it. Just April. Inside. Screenshots. Messages. Voice notes. None of them sent to me. The first screenshot hit me like a sledgehammer. If he ever finds out, I'll just tell him it's emotional support. He's too soft to fight back. Sent to someone saved as Des Jim flexed biceps medium skin tone. I couldn't believe what I was reading. She was talking about me like I was a pet. A harmless, spineless husband she could outmaneuver at any moment. My hands started shaking as I clicked through more. There were selfies of her in our bedroom, when I wasn't home. Outfit check photos, like she was asking someone to pick which dress she'd wear on a date. One voice note was her whispering, "He's asleep. I'll call you in 10. Can't wait to feel your hands again." I had to pause halfway through. I felt like throwing up. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in my car again, this time with proof. She didn't think I'd find it. She didn't think I'd leave. But now I had a reason to stay gone. She hadn't just crossed a line. She'd painted the entire road in gasoline and lit a match. And I was done pretending I didn't smell the smoke. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. My head throbbed with the kind of pressure you get when something shifts in your reality, like stepping off a curb that isn't there. Everything suddenly feels wrong, off balance. And yet, there I was, alone in the dark, watching my wife flirt through texts and half-naked selfies inside the home I paid for, in the bed we used to share, to a man I hadn't even identified yet. Not fully. Des Jim flexed biceps, medium skin tone. I wish I could say I didn't recognize the name. I wish I could tell you he was a stranger, a random guy from the internet, or some coworker from her yoga class. But no. As I clicked further, through more screenshots and images that made my stomach knot, one video caught my eye. It wasn't explicit, but it was intimate. She was laughing. She was calling him Desi. She was in our backyard. And she wasn't holding the phone. He was filming her. That's when my heart dropped. Desmond Tiller. My former college roommate. My best man at our wedding. The same guy I hadn't talked to in over a year because of some vague falling out that I never fully understood. He just stopped texting, said he was busy, moved across town, ghosted me slowly and politely. Now I knew why. The anger didn't come immediately. First was shame. Thick, slow shame that spread through my chest and made me want to shrink into the car seat until I disappeared. She cheated with him? Someone who once borrowed my dress shoes to take his own girlfriend to prom? Someone who used to crash on our couch after too many drinks? Someone who stood 2 feet from me as I cried during our vows. The betrayal wasn't sharp. It was dull and deep, like a rotten root system you don't realize is there until your whole tree collapses. I replayed every memory, every party where they shared inside jokes, every time I caught them glancing at each other too long, every time I told myself I was overthinking, that I was just insecure. Hell, I even remembered how she laughed when I asked once, "You two ever have a thing?" And she kissed me and said, "Please. Des is like a brother." Brother, huh? So I did what any wreck of a man would do. I didn't sleep. I drove to Des's gym at 6 a.m. and sat in the parking lot like a stalker. I waited for his black Jeep to show up, same one I helped him jumpstart 2 summers ago. When he stepped out, all athletic arrogance and fake humility, I saw the smug ease in his walk. And for a moment, I thought about walking up and asking him why. Just why? But I didn't. Because I knew what he'd say. He'd lie. Or worse, he'd smirk and tell me the truth. So instead, I went back to the house, logged into our joint bank account, and started the real process of leaving. Not the dramatic movie version. The boring, brutal, paper-heavy version. The one where you quietly drain half the savings and contact a lawyer your cousin once used. Where you take photos of furniture and text yourself serial numbers. Where you forward emails and print statements and move methodically, like a ghost cataloging the ruins of its old life. She still hadn't messaged me. Not once. And that silence? It told me everything. She didn't miss me. She didn't panic. She didn't even care enough to lie. But she would. Oh, she would. The funny thing is, when people cheat, they always think they're smart. Smarter than the person they're hurting. Smarter than the mess they're creating. But Lacey? She made one mistake. One tiny oversight that she probably never even thought about again. And that one thing flipped the whole story upside down. It happened the next morning. I was packing up some files from my cloud drive, the one she never used. It was mostly filled with work backups, scanned receipts, and tax folders. Boring stuff. But I remembered that months ago, I'd linked the home computer to the cloud account, just to auto-backup in case of crashes. I hadn't touched it in ages. Out of nothing but spiteful curiosity, I checked the Recent Uploads tab. That's when I saw a file named voice_record_22_bathroom. Wave. The timestamp? From 3 weeks ago. Around 11:47 p.m. My heart rate kicked up instantly. I knew the naming convention. That wasn't hers. That was my old digital voice recorder, the one I'd lost months ago and assumed she'd tossed. It had a habit of turning on accidentally when bumped or dropped. Apparently, it had turned on that night, auto-saved, and backed itself up to my cloud. I downloaded it. I almost didn't want to listen, but I did. It was scratchy at first. Background noise. Then water running. Footsteps. Then her voice. Lacey's unmistakable, annoyed voice. Half whispering and half laughing. You seriously think he suspects anything? He couldn't even tell I moved his car keys 2 inches. He's like, domesticated. It's cute, kind of sad. Then a deeper voice. Desmond. Well, let him be sad. He's got the house, the job, the fantasy. We've got us. Then a long pause. Some movement. A muffled sound I didn't want to identify. And then, I should go cuddle him for a minute so he doesn't overthink. I paused the recording. My ears were hot. My skin was ice. The humiliation hit so hard I dropped the mouse. I had been a charity project. A clueless, soft-hearted idiot they laughed about behind closed doors while I folded laundry and made her tea before bed. But then came the real moment, the one that changed everything. Toward the end of the recording, I heard Desmond again. But this time, his voice wasn't smug. It was lower, more serious. You still haven't told him about the clinic, right? Lacey's voice tensed. No, he doesn't know. He can't. It would ruin everything. The clinic? What clinic? My stomach turned. I didn't know what it meant, but the way she said it, tight, fast, secretive, it wasn't something innocent. It wasn't dermatology or therapy. It was something she didn't want me to know. And just like that, curiosity outgrew pain. I forgot the betrayal. I forgot the affair. I forgot the humiliation. All I could think about was what clinic? I started digging. I knew her passwords. She hadn't changed them. I checked her email history, insurance claims, even her rideshare history. And eventually, in her deleted email bin, one she must have thought was empty, I found it. A digital invoice for a consultation at a private women's health clinic downtown. The subject line, confirming your reproductive consultation, confidential. My hands trembled. Was it a pregnancy scare? An abortion? Or something worse? All I knew was, she had been hiding more than just a man. She was hiding something that affected me, my life, my body, my trust. And now? The cheating felt like just the surface. The affair was the headline. But this was the story buried on page 2, the one they hope you're too hurt to go looking for. She thought I'd never find it. But I did. And I wasn't done. I never imagined I'd be the guy calling a women's clinic pretending to be someone I wasn't. I felt disgusting even asking questions. But after 3 days of turning over every lie in my mind like broken glass, I had no pride left. Just curiosity. Desperate, frantic curiosity. The kind that eats your insides from the inside out until you either know the truth or you choke on not knowing. The receptionist was polite but cautious. As expected, she couldn't tell me anything specific. Patient confidentiality, she said. But when I calmly explained that I was the husband of Lacey M., and that I believed there had been some sort of mix-up, maybe insurance fraud, something fishy that needed checking, the tone shifted. She paused, hesitated, then asked, "Are you listed on her emergency contact?" I was. At the time of her visit, I still was. She told me she couldn't share details. But she said this. If you believe something happened that involves you, directly, it might be best to have a legal request sent in. Or, to have an honest conversation at home. An honest conversation at home. Right. That ship had already burned and sunk. And she was the one who lit the match. But her words lingered. Involves you directly. And that's when the ugliest thought of all surfaced in my brain like a corpse. What if she was pregnant? And it wasn't mine? What if she got rid of it and never told me? What if they made that choice without me even knowing there was a choice to be made? I couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. Couldn't stop playing back every moment in our marriage when she looked me in the eyes and said she loved me. Every kiss, every whispered, "I'm yours." Every time she made me feel like I was the only man in the room, while she was planning her escape in secret. The next day, I made a move I hadn't thought I'd ever make. I sent her a photo of the clinic confirmation email with no text. Nothing else. Just the photo. It took 6 minutes. That's how long it took for the silence to end. The phone rang. It was her. I didn't answer. She called again. Then again. 8 times in total. I let them all ring. Then she switched to texts. The first one said, "Curtis, please don't do this. Please. We need to talk." The second one came fast. "I didn't know how to tell you. It wasn't like that." The third, "We didn't go through with it. Please don't make this worse." And then the fourth, "You don't understand what that night was. You don't know what I was going through." That night. Now I knew there was more. Something had happened. Something real. Something they were going to hide from me forever, until I accidentally stumbled on a glitched backup folder and a forgotten voice memo. I waited a full day before I replied. And when I finally did, it was just 3 words. Ask Des first. I wanted her to panic. I wanted her to sweat. I wanted her to feel a fraction of the weight I'd been carrying alone these past 2 weeks. And oh, she did. Because what came next wasn't an apology. It wasn't an explanation. It was war. It was raining when she finally showed up. The kind of cold, miserable drizzle that turns everything gray and quiet. I was staying in a friend's spare apartment above his garage, barely furnished, still smelled like paint. But it had something I needed: distance. Distance from the house, from her perfume on the pillows, from the sound of her walking barefoot across the kitchen floor like nothing was broken. I wasn't expecting her that night. Honestly, I figured she was still with Des, trying to piece together a story that didn't sound like betrayal stitched in panic. But around 8:40 p.m., I heard tires screech, a car door slam, and fists pounding against the door like she was trying to wake the dead. I didn't move right away. I just sat there on the couch, sipping stale coffee from a chipped mug, letting her rage echo through the wood. Then she screamed my name, loud, furious, like a woman who realized the story wasn't under her control anymore. "Curtis, open the door. You coward. You don't know the full story." The door stayed closed. What she didn't know, though, was that I wasn't alone. My friend's older sister, Celine, had dropped by earlier. Not for anything romantic. Just someone who heard I was going through something and brought takeout and quiet company. She was sitting across from me, cross-legged on the floor, sipping miso soup and watching the chaos outside with wide, fascinated eyes. "You want me to leave?" she asked gently. I shook my head. "No. I want her to see I'm not falling apart." Celine didn't smile. She just nodded and stayed quiet. Lacey kept yelling, "I know about the clinic thing, okay? I know how it looks, but you didn't even give me a chance to explain." Then her voice cracked. "You're not perfect, Curtis. You pushed me away first. You've been cold, distant. You made it easy." That one hit harder than I expected, because I had been distant, but only after she started treating me like a placeholder. A chore. Something to manage, not someone to love. But what she said next changed the entire tone of the night. "You think Des is still part of this? You think he's loyal to me? He's not. He used me, too. He's married now, Curtis. He married someone else 2 weeks ago. He was never mine. Just like I was never really yours." That last line broke something. Not because it hurt, but because it felt rehearsed. Like she came ready to say it. As if she needed me to know that this wasn't just an affair. It was a performance. A long, unraveling performance that started before I even realized I was playing a part. I finally stood up and walked to the door. Celine stayed seated but glanced up, curious. I didn't open the door all the way. Just enough to see Lacey's face through the crack. Wet hair stuck to her cheeks, mascara streaked, her mouth trembling between fury and fear. "You said I wouldn't leave," I told her. "And now you're scared that I won't come back." She flinched. "I wasn't scared," she whispered. "I was angry." "No," I said quietly. "You were arrogant. That's what killed us." And then I did something that surprised even me. I closed the door. Gently. No shouting. No revenge speech. Just closure. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I didn't feel weak. And she didn't scream again. She just stood there in the rain, waiting. But I didn't open the door again. Because now it was my turn to be silent. 2 days passed after the storm at the door. I didn't hear from her. No texts, no calls. Not a single knock. It was the longest silence we'd ever shared. And for once, it wasn't me begging for peace. It was her, probably spinning 100 versions of what to say. Probably crafting the perfect apology, the perfect sob story, the perfect way to spin it all back to me being too sensitive and her being confused. But I wasn't confused anymore. I was done with the guessing games. I'd already been back to the house. Quietly. She wasn't there. I waited until I saw her location ping in another part of the city. She still didn't know I had access to her shared iCloud login. When I walked in, it felt surreal. Like stepping onto the set of a life I used to live, but no longer belonged in. The dining chair still had that slight tilt from the night I walked out. My jacket was still hanging on the hook by the door. Everything exactly where I left it. Except for the woman who ruined it all. I went to the kitchen. That's where I left the letter. It wasn't poetic. It wasn't angry. It was cold. Surgical. Just facts and truths. Written in the same tone she used when she used to remind me to please buy the almond milk, not regular. I told her I knew about the folder. About the voice memo. About Des. About the clinic. I told her she didn't break me. She just helped me see myself clearly for the first time in years. I told her that I was done asking why, done begging for transparency, done loving someone who saw me as a placeholder. And I ended it with a line I had rehearsed 1,000 times in my head. "You didn't lose me because of Des. You lost me because you made me feel invisible in my own marriage." Then, I placed the house key next to the letter. Not the spare. The main one. The one that used to hang from my keychain every day for 6 years. I didn't leave anything else behind. I went back to the apartment above the garage, made myself coffee I barely drank, and waited. She found the letter 12 hours later. I know because the first text came in at 7:03 a.m., and it was just one word. No. Then another. You don't mean this. Curtis, please. She didn't call. Not yet. Just more messages. Each one slipping further out of control. She said she'd fix it. Said she'd go to counseling. Said she'd cut everyone off, even Des. She even said she was sorry for the clinic and that it wasn't what I thought. A line so vague I nearly laughed out loud. Classic Lacey. Confess without actually naming the sin. But what got me most was the final message she sent that morning. You always told me you wanted a family. I never told you why I was scared of that. Suddenly, it all clicked. The lies. The secrecy. The coldness that started long before Des. There was something else buried beneath it all. And now, just as she realized she couldn't pull me back in, she dangled a secret like a carrot. Like I was supposed to lunge at it, crawl back just to understand. But not this time. For once, she was the one left with questions and no answers. She was the one staring at silence and wondering what it meant. And I was the one who had finally stopped chasing ghosts. A week passed. Then two. The text slowed, then stopped. I thought maybe that was it. Maybe she'd finally accepted that I was gone for good. That I'd peeled her fingers off the strings and walked off the stage of her show. But I should have known better. People like Lacey don't just let things go. Not when they lose control. Not when silence hits harder than any shouted argument. It was a Sunday morning. Quiet. Peaceful. I was in a park 2 towns over, sitting on a bench near a duck pond with a coffee and a dog I was temporarily fostering. It was the first time in months I felt normal. No weight on my chest, no pit in my stomach. Just birds, wind, and the warmth of the sun on my face. Then I saw her. She walked up slowly, like she wasn't sure if I'd run or yell. Her eyes were sunken, makeup free, the confident mask gone. She wasn't wearing the designer coat or the heels she used to flaunt. Just jeans, an old hoodie of mine, and a sadness that clung to her like smoke. I didn't move. She sat beside me. Neither of us spoke at first. I didn't offer her coffee. She didn't ask. Then finally, she said, I thought you'd scream at me. Or hate me. I shrugged. I did. Quietly. While you were with him. She winced. I was wrong. I let that hang in the air. She tried again. I never thought you'd actually leave. I know, I said. That was your first mistake. She nodded. Then, to my surprise, she didn't beg. She didn't blame. She didn't twist it back on me like she always used to. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. It was sealed. She handed it to me and said, This is the truth. The clinic. The things I never told you. I wrote it down. No games. You can read it or not. But I'm not going to keep chasing you. I'm not proud of what I did. But I want you to heal. Even if it's not with me. That stunned me. Not because I forgave her. Not then, not there. But because for the first time in years, she finally let go of control. No performance. No manipulation. Just truth. I didn't open the envelope right away. I let her walk away first. And I swear, for the first time since everything collapsed, I felt something shift. Not closure. Not peace. But possibility. 3 months later, I moved into a new apartment. Clean walls. Fresh sheets. No ghosts in the closet. I opened the envelope one rainy night with no expectations. Inside was a short, honest letter. She admitted the pregnancy. It wasn't mine. She ended it herself, not because of shame or fear, but because she realized she'd built her life on lies and didn't want to bring a child into that. And you know what? It still hurt. But it didn't haunt me. I never saw her again. She moved out of state. I unfollowed, blocked, deleted every trace of her. Not out of hatred, but because the past doesn't deserve to live in the present once you've survived it. As for me, I kept the dog. I got promoted at work. And one random afternoon, while getting coffee at a bookstore, I met someone who didn't know me as the guy who got cheated on. Someone who smiled like she meant it, who listened without trying to fix me, who never once made me feel like I wasn't enough. And for the first time in a long, long time, I believed maybe I wasn't. Maybe I was just someone who deserved better. And finally, I had it.